Hello and welcome to What's Next. It's the Indy NXT Road Series here from none other than Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in Brazelton, Georgia. Not actually too far from, I believe, Lanier Speedway is right across the street, or it was. I'm not sure if that track still exists, but we're here at the location where they hold the Petit Le Mans since I believe the early 90s, and we've got ourselves a drizzle here in qualifying. A bit of a surprise here for us, Sophie.
Yes, I was about to say as we were coming into air, Jacob, that there is a blue cloud of rain making its way across this Road Atlanta track. If there is any test of any driver out there in North America, it's going to be Road Atlanta in the wet. All the undulating corners, the complex braking zones. It's going to be the ultimate test of who's behind the wheel, Jacob.
Yeah, this track, a very tricky one to tackle in the dry. Very, very high speed and fast, particularly through that flowing set of opening corners. Believe from the testing I had done as part of the work that goes into our track guides for this week, I hadn't gotten it to actually rain at all, but I noticed that in the dry especially, you could basically just crack the throttle heading off into turn one. Really high commitment corner and work your way up that hill. So it'll be interesting to see how this track kind of evolves as the rain starts to fall, even if it is kind of the light drizzle we're seeing so far.
Yeah, right now it's not going to affect them too much. If you can get the heat in the tires, the water really isn't gathering on the track yet. So you can possibly throw it in there way more aggressively, but in the gap between qualifying and the race, the track will start to get wetter and wetter.
Yeah, we're riding on board with Andre Castro on his first of two qualifying laps here tonight. And you can see it's basically just rain in the air, not on the course just yet. So likely more or less dry conditions on the racing surface. That'll likely evolve by the time we get to the later stages of the race, maybe just. I know we've seen a number of instances, particularly in the IndyCar Open Series, where we kind of get, a light rain to materialize over the course of at some point of the race, but it never really gets onto the track to impact the need for potentially a change of tires, a change of overall driving attack, if you will, to make it around the course.
Yeah, you're starting to see some of the rooster tails starting to form as we watch Andre Castro go through his qualifying lap. Just a little bit, not much, so it's not quite affecting the car yet, and not enough that you're going to need those rain tires. The slicks are probably still the faster tire, but again, that could change at any point. It could still be the case when we start the race, and then that changes.
Yeah, we've got JT Speeton and Dennis Branch in the chat cheering on Logan Edwards and Jarrett Corey. Corey went provisionally on the pole for a moment before Castro made it across the line for his first of two laps. We've got Dirty Kohai coming in with Frankie's panicking about the moisture. Yes, Frisky Frankie back here once again. He's currently sitting ninth on the board in qualifying. We'll see if he can put down a improvement here for lap 2 before we get closer to qualifying's conclusion. And I think that's going to be kind of a big thing going into this race. Obviously, passing's not necessarily going to be at the biggest premium as we watch Castro navigate the rather lengthy back straightaway here. Good opportunity to get in the draft, work your way alongside another car before you head into this very high commitment chicane at the bottom of the hill here. But certainly not a bad thing to put yourself up near the front to not maybe have to pass quite as many cars here.
Correct, Jacob. And I do want to highlight that during the last rain round at Barcelona, Frisky Frankie was one of the drivers who managed to kind of make their way back up through the field. So Frankie, even if he does find himself towards the back of the grid, does seem to know how to keep the car on the pavement when the rain is falling.
Yeah, we just watched the conclusion of Frankie's second lap. Currently puts him 5th on the board. We'll see if that sticks here for him. I'm going to watch with one more car, I believe, before we get rolling here. Basically, everybody's either turned their times in or is out on the speedway. We'll watch outboard with Ellis Spice in their number 19 IL-15 as they navigate Road Atlanta here in the drizzle, if you will. I want to thank everybody for tuning us in here on P1 for Indy NXT. Of course, this is our road round for the week. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for the Oval Series from North Wilkesboro, a track we've seen before, but a very tricky one in its own right, given the kind of the up and downhill nature of it, along with the lopsided corners from that facility. That'll be tomorrow night alongside other coverage that we've got. We'll get to that at some point during the show here tonight. We're watching the last couple drivers get through their qualifying runs as Ellis Spice works their second and final lap here from Road Atlanta.
Yeah, I just want to highlight there's only a couple of people qualifying on the wet tire, and right now they're all towards the back of the grid, so it should be interesting to see what choices everyone makes for the race, Jacob. Do they want to try and start on these slick tires? Will they be preferred? Or will people go onto the wet tire when it comes for the long haul of this race? Andre Castro is still circulating the track right now and is on the slick tires and not seeming to be struggling too much, turning 109.2s, similar to what was set during qualifying.
Yeah, at least at a glance, it looks like this is kind of similar conditions, albeit slightly much more improved than the likes of VIR. VIR had stagnant water on the track with basically nothing in the air, which resulted in drivers needing to commit to the dry tire and navigating puddles. I imagine we're going to see likely a dry commitment race unless iRacing presents to us a rather large accumulation of rain before race time here, in which case that'd really be the only opportunity I think drivers would consider it. We'll just have to wait and see, as we're still waiting for the conclusion of qualifying here, as there's still a couple cars yet to conclude their runs.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, looking at the radar, that streak of blue looks to not be letting up anytime soon, Jacob. So it will be light rain, but the rain will be persistent. So tire choice might be a factor.
Yeah, potentially if it accumulates quickly enough, that could drastically change very high commitment corners on the track. We kind of talked about it briefly earlier with that opening section. You know, it's a bunch of downhill S corners where you're working very, very close to the curbs on either side of the track, and that tends to be where a lot of that water accumulates. And I imagine if drivers are going to have to try to navigate offline to get away from that, that'll potentially slow them down a little bit, and that maybe would give those wet tires an opportunity to shine. We'll just have to wait and see what that gamble or that gambit looks like as we roll into the last moments of qualifying here before we make it into the race. Of course, Road Atlanta more known for its sports car racing ventures, but we've had a good time seeing it in various coverage here on the channel in open wheel cars, and it's put on quite the show in seasons gone by.
Yes, and it's a staple in lower formula, and it used to host in, and will host in the future, the SCCA runoffs, where there's definitely some open wheel cars in that, as it looks like the session is now moving over to the race session now.
Yeah,
the track is still considered lightly wet.
Lightly wet, and drivers will start to grid up, and we'll bring you the starting lineup as they get towards the starting grid. Back the cameras up just a little bit here so we can get more of these cars in the shot. Goodness me. We're going to go with this one.
Jacob, the longer everyone is sitting here on the grid, the more water is falling on the track, the more it has a chance to accumulate. And then, of course, you have this long pace lap here where everyone will be behind that Porsche safety car for it to accumulate further. I see a mixture of people starting on the wet and dry tires. Logan Edwards going for the wets. Micah Mixer going for the wets. But then you see Frisky Frankie staying on dries. Nathan Ray in 10th place around Logan Edwards is on the slicks as well. People ducking in and out, trying to find out what combination they're going to use, Jacob. Whether they're going to run the wets, whether they're going to run the dries. It's all a mental game of chess. Everyone can see what everyone's running in the screen on their info. So I'll let you start the starting lineup, Jacob, but an interesting game of chess being played now as everyone appears to be switching to those wet Firestone tires.
Yeah, we'll get to the starting lineup as Jarrett Corey finally makes it onto the grid on those wet Firestones. He'll line up from the pole, 109, 187 for him. Alongside him will be Andre Castro, winner from Road America earlier on this season. He'll be looking to make, hopefully, a better statement than he did last week at Imola. Raphael Lippi will line up third alongside NASCAR driver Daniel Falkingham. I believe he's in the NASCAR Series. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Frisky Frank Wynn will line up fifth in the number 7 alongside Hamilton Barrera Ruiz in the 6th spot. Vitor Popst was making another appearance here on the top split. I believe he was a multi-time winner towards the end of season, or our first season here of Indy NXT Road Series competition. He'll be in 7th. Franco Michini is back in the 15. He'll be starting 8th. Logan Edwards will line up 9th alongside Nathan Ray. I believe I've seen Nathan Ray race a good amount of IMSA, so he's probably very well familiar with this track. Edson Toole will line up 11th alongside Votive Racing's newest pickup in Micah Mixer. Micah Carl will line up 13th alongside David Motenjuano. Daniel Gomez will line up in 15th. Eduardo Galbinski in the number 20 is back for more Indy NXT Road Series action. Chris Wetz will line up 17th in the 17. Indy Kirchenbauer will line up 18th for Votive Racing. Jacob Obuslak is back. He's starting from the pit lane, it would appear. Maybe he didn't make it to the grid in time. David Piazza will be 20th, and then we've still got the final 2 cars on the grid, those being Giovanni Blackerby and Ellis Spice, the only car not able to get a time in qualifying. And we've got ourselves the starting lineup here for an action-packed race here from Road Atlanta.
Yeah, and I want to comment here. Jakub Oberslack, he is sitting on pit lane with slick tires on. He appears to be the only car in the field that is trying to start on those dry Firestone tires. Big gamble. We'll see if it pays off for him.
Yeah, we'll see if he maybe gets back out there on the wets somehow. Maybe he's in the pit lane having made that choice late. Not sure what our tire graphics indicating for us here. They're all white. I'm assuming that's indicating that we're on wet tires here. I am admittedly not quite familiar with it because we haven't had a ton of wet tire running here in Indy NXT competition. That's the only other tire compound we have aside from those traditional Firestone slicks. But we're working. It says
they're currently heading down into the chicane, one of the best passing opportunities on the track. Heavy braking zone. And then a heavy traction zone as they head up under the bridge and down into that high commitment final corner where the start finish line is right on the exit, Jacob.
Yeah, they'll navigate up under the Fox Bridge, the Fox Factory Bridge, head down the hill here. Head off the final corner. Pace car is going to pull in now. Corey's going to launch.
Green flag.
We're going to be underway here from Road Atlanta.
Yeah, 22 IL-15s. Ready to go, and they launch down into turn number 1. Jarrett Corey streaking out in front.
Yeah, you see everybody minding their P's and Q's through the opening couple of corners here as Castro's going to make it up. I believe we're going to have Franco Michini going wide. He stays pointed the right direction and rejoins in 13th, but likely had issues coming up the hill for him.
Yes, there was contact at the start. The 12 of Vitor Popst had some contact that sent him spearing off the track and folded up the rear wing on that Indy NXT car. Tough break for Vitor.
Now we've caught Vitor. He's missing the rear wing off that machine as he navigates the 90-degree corners at the bottom of the hill here. He'll likely have to come down the pit lane to fix that. I mean, night done for Vitor. Unfortunate for a previous series winner here. Back up at the front, Castro's hunted down Falkingham as Falkingham's worked his way up to second. Good to see Daniel out here. He's got a Aston Martin Formula One inspired.
Oh, there's trouble in the chicane. Big trouble in the chicane. Franco Michini around. There's a car without a front wing skipping through the stones. Big trouble in the chicane. And there's more trouble behind as Vitor is also off again. And Jakub Oberschleck back on the wet tires now. That gamble did not pay off for him, but he's going to get some free spots from the cars that have had trouble on this opening lap, Jacob.
Yeah, we'll try to see if we can catch what happened to Franco there just moments ago. He's around at the bottom of the backstretch. We'll catch up on the backstretch here. We're working our way down towards that chicane. See what happens to Franco here. He's going to get onto the brakes. I believe that's going to be Indy Kirchenbauer ahead of him. There's going to be a car that makes contact behind him. I believe that's going to be the red machine of the 6 car, which will be, or the 16 rather. That'll be Micah Caro, who makes contact with him, likely locking the tires up on the way into the chicane. But let's make our way back towards the front of the field as Logan Edwards is working on Hamilton Barrero Reese for the 5th spot. As they head down the back straightaway here, they'll be side by side. Just about. Barrero Ruiz is off.
Yeah, Barrero, the Colombian, skipping across the grass. There was also a move being made on Frankie Nguyen by Nathan Ray. Move Nathan Ray up into the 6th position. Logan Edwards is running in 5th. Rafael Lippi is in 4th. Andre Castro in 3rd. And then Daniel Falkingham, the ERL winner in a wet Silverstone IndyCar race. So Falkingham is all over the back of Jarrett Colry. They had gone purple that lap, and it looks like Falkingham is now going to take over the lead of the race from Jarrett Colry.
Yeah, Falkingham he's been making the rounds in these open wheel machines as of recent. We've seen him in the Elite Racing League's P1 Broadcasting Series of recent. You know, that wet race at Silverstone he picked up the win at. I've encountered him a couple times at Indy NXT competition throughout this season in particular. So it looks like that driver's starting to branch out into some open wheel machinery kind of as this year progresses.
Yes, and he has taken it like a fish to water, it seems. Apt metaphor given the weather conditions here, Jacob. Don't know why I got tongue-tied there, but Falkingham is starting to stretch away from Jarrett Colry. Only about 0.3 of a second gap there.
Yeah, let's try to get some gaps here and see where the rest of the field's starting to kind of bunch back together. We're seeing Frank Wynn likely under fire from David Montajuano. That'll be likely, I believe, the closest battle on the course as it stands. Actually, no, Micah Mixer on Barrero Ruiz as they work down the hill. We'll catch that as they navigate towards those double right 90-degree corners at the bottom of the hill here. Micah will be on the inside here on Hamilton. We'll see how this goes.
Yes, and there's another exciting battle to also keep us entertained as Micah makes his way around that car of Hamilton Barrero Ruiz, but Logan Edwards and Nathan Ray made the move and now has to deal with the lapped car of Vitor Post, who has made his way back out onto the track after that incident.
Yeah, you've got
Derek Colry is on the gearbox of the leader, Daniel Falkingham.
Catch that now.
And so there is a battle for the lead as they head into turn number 1. A high commitment corner. It's difficult to get your visual reference when you're dealing with all that spray as they use all of the track just to try and carry as much speed as possible. Colry takes a big chunk of the curves there, nearly loses the car a little bit, runs wide, but holds on position as he now has to worry about that Guinness machine of the 1 car of Andre Castro.
Castro has a bit of a moment working off that left-hander at the bottom of the hill there. That'll put him under fire from Rafael Lippi in the 2 machine. They'll be side-by-side heading down to the 90-degree angles here.
Yes, and it's definitely a case of being brave can get you pace, but one little mistake, one overstep of the available grip, and you can lose it all. It's ultimately, if you get it right, you're a genius, hailed as a hero. If you do it wrong, you're sitting on pit lane with a meatball.
Yeah, certainly high risk, high reward to be had at Road Atlanta, and that kind of sums up this track on the whole, right? As you've got a lot of very high commitment, fast-flowing corners through the opening section, a long back straightaway to carry a lot of speed into a very heavy downhill chicane just to work your way back up the hill. Another high commitment right-hander kind of as you descend the hill on the opposite end to get to the start-finish line as we watch Colry try to hunt back down Falkingham's. Falkingham's got to about a 3/4 of a second lead as it stands.
Yeah, Falkingham was faster than Colry that previous lap, and It looks like the closest battle on track is going to be over that final step of the podium. Andre Castro in the number 1 machine holding off Rafael Lippi in the number 2 car.
Yeah, let's see if we can hop on board with Mr. Lippi. See what he's seeing here in the spray of his IL-15. Not a metric ton of spray off the back of that machine of Andre Castro just ahead there, but you can definitely tell that it's coming down and the track is wet as they will head off down towards 10A and 10B, that chicane at the bottom of the hill here. See Corey and Falkingham just ahead here. Castro's going to hold him tight, make the move back.
Yeah, that back straightaway is really the best spot on the track, even here in the wet, to get an overtake done, because it's such a long straightaway. These Indy NXT cars punch such a huge hole in the air, as it looks like Jarrett Corey was taking a look there on Daniel Falkingham for the lead. Corey, the Indy NXT GOAT, has caught back up.
I think we might as well just start calling him what's next, because he's definitely shown time and time again he's been able to surmount the odds. We saw it a couple weeks ago between himself and Caleb Bomer from Interlagos, of course, making that last lap pass on Bomer to take the win there. We'll see if maybe we get ourselves another hot and heavy battle here at the front between Falkingham and Corey.
Looks like Indy Kirkwood hit some trouble as he is missing a front wing. It looks like Eduardo Galbinski touched the curb on exit of the hairpin on the back straight, spun, and just Kirkwood nowhere to go. Tough break for Kirkwood.
Yeah, he's riding down the back straightaway now, missing that front wing. Likely not great in the downforce department. I'd imagine that's something you need even more here in wet conditions than maybe you even do in the dry. So we'll see if he continues to opt to struggle around here in his IL-15. So we've got more action as the front as Frank Wynn's fallen down a couple spots down the order. We'll see if we can try to figure out what happened to him just moments ago. Heading off into the chicane. Looks like he's just going to get locked up on the rears and head through the dirt. And that'll put him down a couple spots in the order. He'll currently come back out in 11th. Now under fire from, I believe that's 20 Galbinski.
Yes, and I want to highlight once again that Jarrett Corey on the gearbox of that. On my screen, it is in a Ramco Aston Martin F1 livery of Daniel Falkingham. Unfortunately for what happened to Frisky Frankie there, it's so easy to do in the wet, as it looks like Corey is pulling alongside. Nope, sorry, spoke too soon. Looked like Corey was pulling alongside, but no. It's just so easy to lock your brakes as we see them going into that very chicane, because when you're in the wet, you have to change how you drive the car. It's so easy to lock the front that you start to move that brake bias back, and you move it back, and you move it back, and next thing you know, you moved a little bit too far, and then that's when you get yourself into trouble, as Frisky Frankie did.
Yeah, and I think that's something we started to see play out over the course of the running here, is that maybe drivers that were a bit better in the start, where the track wasn't quite as wet, were maybe able to get away with some of those deeper moves on the brakes. You know, and that's why we've seen Falkingham stay in the touch of Corey, as Corey's been able to kind of manage that mistake threshold a bit better, as they've kind of worked their way well away of P3 and Andre Castro's. They're now 2 some odd seconds up the road here.
Yeah, now Andre Castro and Rafael Lippi are the 2 biggest battles on track. What I will say, Jacob, is iRacing's still saying it's very lightly wet, but as we can tell by those rooster tails, it most certainly is not very lightly wet anymore. Not sure how iRacing determines that, as we see Castro braking offline. That is one of the core strategies you can use to try to ultimately increase your braking force, is to brake offline. You can see the rubber in the racetrack, that darker gray. During the dry, that's where you want to be running. That's where all the grip is. But in the wet, all the water just doesn't really get into, it doesn't really get into the surface. It basically just kind of turns it into a sloppy, slippery mess. and then you have the outside of the track where the track doesn't have all that rubber into it, and that's where all the grip is going to be found. So you're going to see people running wide, missing the apex on purpose, so that they're on the more rough, less smooth part of the track, where ultimately these wet Firestones will find the grip.
Yeah, we saw...
Oh, there's trouble! Trouble. Logan Edwards around. Big lockup on Logan's part, it seems, as they were entered into the fast first part of the 90s. They just too much entry speed, lost the rear. Now they're off on the wet grass, having to recover.
Yeah, they hit the first curb and around they go. We've got it on replay here now. That's going to put Edwards a couple spots down the order. He'll rejoin in 7th. Tough break for the Luke Mansky Racing Esports car. He's running inside the top 5, I believe. He'll have to work his way forward, potentially count on a mistake of some of the drivers ahead of him now. As Falkingham's... Oh, Corey's around! We just caught him! And he'll fall to 4th behind Leapy and Castro. Likely just got too much wheel heading off into turn 1 there. Sliding the back of the car.
I think what it also was, Jacob, if riding on board with him, what you'll notice is he's fine until he gets on that rubber part of the track that I was just talking about, Jacob. That part of the track where it's all smooth. Just, there was no grip there to do the kind of high commitment move he needed to get around Falkingham, and ultimately that's what caused Corey to go around and spin.
Yeah, we see him working kind of into the corner here. He's sawing on the wheel and just kind of grabs the very, very inside of that rubbered in line, and his car slides. Not able to quite keep the traction he was hoping for, and that's going to put him down a couple spots here as the battle continues to rage on throughout the middle portions of this field here. We'll have to see if we can catch ourselves the next...
Oh, and Frisky Frankie is in the pits without a front wing. Let's see what happened to our good streamer friend, Frisky Frankie. Looks like they got off on the turn 5 exit curb and just into the wall, nosed it in hard. Might be night done for Frisky Frankie.
Yeah, they were having to navigate. I believe that's going to be the lap machine of somebody. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't quite make out the car number on that machine. We'll see if we can make it out as it goes by, but he'll come off that curb and spin. And that'll be...
Yeah, I think that was the lap car of Edison Toole, who I actually don't think was a lapped car at all.
No, I thought maybe he had difficulties earlier on the lap and was running slow. But let's catch this battle for the 6th spot, as we've got David Montalbano leading this group with Hamilton Barrera Ruiz in this Texaco car in the middle. Micah Mixer trails behind it in the Vote of Racing entry. And now they're having to navigate by the 12 machine of Vitor Pops through the 90s here. And we're going to have 3 cars fighting for position heading down the back straightaway here.
Yeah, this is an interesting scrap here between the 14 car. Hamilton Barrera Ruiz obviously was very fast and produced that exciting race with Logan Edwards last week at Imola. And then Micah Mixer had an unfortunate night at Iowa earlier on in the Indy Open broadcast. So definitely 3 very accomplished drivers, all fighting over a quite solid top 10 position, Jacob.
Yeah, Montalbano appears to be sporting a Get Good Racing machine livery. That's, of course, likely familiar to a number of people tuning into our next Oval Series coverage, where we see the likes of Dylan Vilashinsky there, as we've got cars all over the place trying to make it around him through the uphill section of this lap, as Mixer's on the back of Ruiz, and Ruiz is on the back of Montalbano. They're nose to tail as they head down the hill here, heading off towards those 90-degree corners.
Yeah, and Montalbano taking a big risk going over those curves. We saw Frisky Frankie have his troubles on those curves, and that's because these painted surfaces really are just not... Oh, Micah Mixer going down the inside. Oh, did they touch? Did they touch? Looks like everyone has a front wing still, and Micah Mixer gets the position over Hamilton Barrera Ruiz. What I was going to say, Jacob, before that battle heated up, was those painted surfaces on the curbs are extra slick, as we see Micah Mixer looking on the racing line that should really compromise his braking as he tries to make the move on Matajuano. Matajuano runs deep, holds Micah Mixer off. Mixer does not get as good of a drive off the corner, falls back slightly off the Get Good racing machine.
And I've just noticed that Logan Edwards has fallen down the order in the pit lane with a meatball flag, likely encountering some extra tumultuous conditions here on the wet road Atlanta. And this was kind of a track we figured when it would get wet like this was going to be a very, very tricky place to get around. As you see Matajuano hit the curb, slide all over the track, Mixer all over him. He lifts out of that move thinking that Matajuano might get sideways there, and they'll continue to battle head off those 90-degree corners here. But very tricky track that these drivers are having to navigate around. Oh, and they touch.
Yes, oh, they touch big time. Matajuano gets off the track, manages to rejoin safely. Micah Mixer gets the move done, but it's going to have where Matajuano, one, probably seen a little bit of the red mist, but also when they get down the straightaway, ultimately, it's Matajuano who has the draft. I do want to highlight real quick, now they got a slight break in the action as, ooh, going off is Micah Mixer off the track, manages to recover. Matajuano looking on the inside, getting the bit between his teeth, trying to see if he can retake this position. But, oh. Micah Mixer probably just had a small code brown there, just got a big twitch as they touch that painted curb, as they now make their way through the downhill section. Want to highlight the reason Logan Edwards got that meatball was as they came down through this section, Logan Edwards lost it, and spun off and hit the concrete wall. Tough break for the Luke Mansky esports driver.
Yeah, tough break for him. Let's actually catch to the battle for second now between Castro, Lippy, and Corey. Corey's worked his way back up here. He's going to have 3 more laps to regain the couple spots he lost trying to make the move on Daniel Falkingham, as he'll go side by side with Lippy into 1.
Yes, and hopefully it looks like he has cleared Lippy into the corner. Some dirt out on the track. Someone has gone through the kitty litter. Corey now up into the 3rd position, looking to possibly get back to the 2nd position that he gave up after his mistake, as he's currently working on the back of Andre Castro.
Certainly been an action-packed... Oh.
Go ahead. I was going to say Falkingham has checked out 4 seconds clear of Andre Castro.
Yeah, 4 seconds clear. Corey is kind of the only one that was able to hold anything to him for a time, and he's made it back to Castro here to maybe regain that 2nd spot. Obviously would have liked to have been staying battle for the lead, but we've had quite the action-packed race for him, and throughout the field here tonight, we've got plenty of action-packed racing yet to come here this week. Tomorrow night will be the premiere coverage with Gary Godso on the call for the IndyCar Oval Series top split, 7:15 Eastern Time from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And then we'll have Indy NXT Oval Series competition from North Wilkesboro at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Wednesday night, we've got the Horizon IndyCar Series, 8 p.m. Eastern Time from Kentucky, alongside the Formula Super Series at 8:20 from Sonoma, as this battle continues to rage. And then it's the opening weekend of the AMA Grand National Series from Daytona. That'll be 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time Thursday night. Mark Murphy on the call for that, alongside the Trucks Friday night, 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And that'll bring us back around to next Monday, where we'll be back here with IndyCar Open and Indy NXT Road Series coverage. And I think Castro's going to have to fight for it here in the final couple laps here.
He definitely went major defensive his last time through the chicane there. Oh, I just heard some chirping from Micah Mixer. See what happened here. Oh, I definitely would want to highlight the 18 car little hip check from the David Matajuano as they come through turn number 1.
Yeah, we saw contact between the two of them a couple times earlier on So we're working to the white flag now. Mixer's going to maybe get another crack at it as they're working the backstretch here as Falkingham takes the white. Castro's under fire from Corey into turn number 1 here. We'll see if Corey has anything to say before this lap concludes to get himself back into that second spot.
Yeah, he is certainly pulled up behind Castro. They clicked off very similar lap times. But Corey is just that little bit quicker, but it's one thing to catch, another thing to pass. Is going to have possibly an opportunity here into the slow hairpin, and then another opportunity into that last chicane. Yeah. Going to have the draft, going to have push to pass. You still have push to pass in the rain.
Yeah, Corey has just 4 seconds more than Castro in the push-to-pass department. They're likely going to use a good amount of it here down the back straightaway. Castro's out. Corey still has a little bit left. He'll get alongside here as they head off into the chicane.
Castro runs deep, but not enough. And Corey goes off into the grass. Manages to not lose a position so far to Rafael Lippi. Corey will come home third, Andre Castro in second, and your winner, Daniel Falkingham. I heard there was a big kerfuffle with Micah Mixer, and as it appears again, contact between Mixer and Manajano, this time through the S's, spinning Micah Mixer around.
And Mixer will make his rounds around the track. Currently scored in 8th, but I believe he's now got a black flag. Likely for hitting the incident limit would be my guess, given the contact between himself, Montalbano, the off track. As a result of that, we'll see where he cycles through, if that stays where he scored.
Yes, and so that the battle over 6th, 7th, and 8th ultimately comes to tears. Tough break for Micah Mixer. But unfortunately, that is racing, and that is racing in slippery conditions here at Road America.
Road Atlanta.
Yeah, Road Atlanta. Sorry, wrong road.
lot more twisty bits on this one than Road America, but we'll get to the finishing results here from a very wet, very wild Road Atlanta as we run through those now. Daniel Falkingham, your winner over Andre Castro. New winner here again on the season. 6.5 seconds separating those two. Jarrett Corey makes it back onto the podium, just barely following a potential disaster move gone wrong into the chicane on the final lap. He holds on. Rafael Lippi, who finishes 4th. Nathan Ray makes it up to 5th ahead of Hamilton Barrera Ruiz in 6th. David Montalbano holds on to 7th ahead of Daniel Gomez, promoted to 8th. David Piazza will finish 9th ahead of Ellis Spice to round out the top 10. Good run for Ellis after, I believe, starting 22nd on the field tonight. He is likely the LGN driver of the race. We need to give one of those out. Jacob Obuslak will be 11th. Indy Kirchenbauer, the reigning Indy NXT Oval Series champ, will come home in 12th. Chris Wetz, 13th. Edson Toole in 14th. Giovanni Blackerby in 15th. Micah Mixer will be last on the lead lap. 16th. Eduardo Gelbinski will finish 17th, 1 lap down alongside Vitor Popst in 18th. Mike Acaro will finish 19th ahead of Luke Mansky Racing's Logan Edwards, who faced his own difficulties in this race. And then Frank Wynn, Frisky Frankie, will wind up 21st following his difficulties here in the wet alongside Franco Machini. I believe maybe made it out onto the course at some point in time. Actually, no, he wasn't the pit lane starter, was he? He finishes 22nd and last of the 22 starters here tonight. But what a race we got here tonight, and we'll see who makes it on up into the interview room to get that all sorted out. We've got Jarrett. We'll track down his machine on the course somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, what a great run for Jarrett. Could obviously a little scruffy with the spin, but ultimately was able to recover. Nearly had P2, just a little too deep in that final corner on that pass attempt on Castro. But what a great run for Jarrett Corey and the Luke Mansky Esports machine.
Yeah, Jarrett put on quite the solid performance despite the difficulties earlier on in the going. You can just grab his machine wherever it is on the... We found it. Back the cameras up just a little further in case we got some lengthy speeches from the podium drivers here tonight. We'll get that graphic up on the screen. We'll get Jarrett on up here. Jarrett, Sophie Connell, Jake McCollins, P1 Broadcasting. You got us?
Yep.
Well, you almost made it back to the spot you kind of fell from following the very tricky turn number 1 situation in the wet here from Road Atlanta. Kind of walk us through navigating these very treacherous conditions. Everybody committed to the wets from the get-go, seemingly as the track got only worse from the drop of the green.
Yeah, I was sort of talking to Logan before the race because he was curious, like, tire-wise. I did a wet to dry practice, or no, dry to wet. But when I loaded, like, conditions, because I used a timeline editor to load track conditions so I wouldn't have to wait forever or just load a million sessions until I got a wet one. It was heavier rain than this, so I wasn't quite sure if it would get wet enough. And I mean, on the pace lap and sort of leading up to that, like, I was sort of like, man, I feel like whatever decision I'm gonna make tire wise, I'm gonna feel like it's the wrong one, and we're just gonna have to see. Unfortunately, it seems I made the right decision to go with the wets, because I definitely saw, like, some people were on slicks. I don't know if they maybe, like, got off the grid, put wets on, and then got back on the grid. I definitely saw a lot of people choosing the slicks, and it was just going to get wetter, so I knew it wasn't quite the right call. So from there, I mean, I was too careful breaking into the chicane, and that's really where Daniel had me, and also some of the alternate lines he was taking were just better. And so I got kind of stuck behind that lap car, and really the lap car didn't impede me too much as I just got a poor exit, and or maybe just a bit too careful in the exit, and he got around me. And so, I mean, I just followed him and tried to learn stuff, and then eventually I felt like I was starting to get faster. And so I tried to go for the move in turn 1, knowing that it might be a bit slippery, but I had to try something, and I just was not expecting it to be that as slippery as it was.
Yeah, we kind of saw the race before the race of people going back and forth on tire selection. I believe everybody, barring one entry, made it onto the grid on wet tires. So pretty much everybody opted for those treaded wet weathers once the race got underway, but it very much seemed like the conditions only really necessitated those more and more as the rain continued to fall. Obviously, we saw many drivers going off through the opening sector of the lap. We saw many making contact and having issues through the double right-handers, through that chicane. Seemingly everywhere on the track was never a good spot to be here tonight, and kind of walk us through maybe some of the adjustments you had to make to how you were driving in these cars here, as we haven't seen a ton of wet weather running in these, and especially on the wet weather tire, to try to get an idea of what exactly this thing does as it progresses into the wet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of what you do at most tracks, which is just kind of back up the corners like Okayama. I mean, here in the dry, I feel like it's kind of like Watkins Glen, very, like, you can send it, like, around some of these corners, but you can't in the wet. Like, turn 1 is just a lift in the dry, but I was braking there in the wet, so it's definitely, like, you just gotta get used to approaching the corners differently, and then taking different lines, as I sort of learned just following Daniel to see where the grip was.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like everybody was having to make at least little tweaks as we saw drivers kind of navigating offline, using the offlines to their advantage, particularly in that lead up to the chicane, kind of forcing drivers to make moves on the now unpreferred typical racing line around here. Sophie, what do you got for Jared here tonight?
Jared, I do have to ask, with the mistake when you were obviously going for the move on Daniel, how did you mentally refocus so that you could make the move on Rafael Lippi and make the moves that you were, or at least go for the moves that you were doing on Andre Castro? How did you maintain, just refocus yourself?
I just sort of went like, right, I'm not winning this now unless Daniel makes a mistake, which, I mean, he could have. He definitely showed a few times that, like, there was a couple moments where it's like, damn, this guy's an alien, and then, like, he makes mistakes, like, oh no, he's human too. Something can happen, but from there it's just trying to maximize the result I can get, because I knew at that point, like, best result I can get second, and I mean, I was pulling away from Andre before. if I can just get back in this, because at the end of the day, I knew that like that mistake came from me just being a bit too ambitious trying to make a move. But I felt like if I'm driving on my own, I can not bin it, hopefully. So I just sort of focused on driving as fast as I can without binning it and trying to catch up. And ultimately, I got there, but it's just too hard to make a pass. I just sort of ended up on that unpreferred line, as I think Jacob was saying, and locked it up, tried to make the corner, but had to give that one up and settle for P3.
Well, nonetheless, podium finish here for you, Jarrett. Certainly a good bid on your way to hopefully will be a championship season for you here in Indy NXT Road Series competition. You know the drill. Friends, family, sponsors, anybody you want to shout out, floor is yours.
Luke Mansky Racing Esports, the sponsors, Lilac City IT, iPredictor, and iCoaching, and P1 Broadcasting for giving this series the spotlight that I kind of feel like maybe it deserves, because we've had a lot of good races here on this broadcast.
Well, I'd certainly like to think we've had many great races on this broadcast, and you've certainly been a big part of that, Jarrett. Keep going fast, having fun. We'll catch you next time, as I believe next week we'll head to Fuji for another international round here in Indy NXT Road Series competition.
Yep, I'm excited for that one. No chicane layout as well, so that's my preferred way of driving at Fuji.
I think that's many people's preferred ways of driving at most tracks. Get the chicanes out of here. We'll catch you next time, Jarrett.
Yep, see ya.
And that'll do it for Jarrett Corey. We'll get Andre Castro's car properly on the screen. We saw a bit of it during Jarrett's interview there, driving that Guinness livery we've seen him sporting for a little while now. And then we'll bring up our winner in Daniel Falkingham, who's decided to make an appearance here. We'll bring him on up here. Daniel Falkingham, Sophie Connell, Jacob Collins, P1 Broadcast. You got us?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, it's been cool to see you kind of make the transition of recent into more of these open wheel events. I believe you took the win in the Elite Racing League's race from the Silverstone circuit just last week here on, on the Elite Racing League channel in the wet as well. So maybe you found something in the wet as well. But it's cool to see you kind of come out here and make that transition, but kind of walk us through maybe some of the stuff you've learned in the course of making that transition, particularly here in wet conditions, as you've seemingly figured some things out.
Yeah, just I didn't even know it was gonna be raining in this. I just saw Indy NXT session was going up, and if I remember correctly, this was like the broadcast split. So I figured I'd sign up, see how I can get on, because I know a lot of really good guys signing up for this over here. So yeah, I didn't even know it was raining. Saw there was rain coming in qualifying, but I knew the rain was really light enough in quali that we could stay on the dry tires. And then once it got to the race, I thought about staying on the dries again, but I wasn't sure like with how much steady rain there's gonna be. The track was just gonna get wetter and wetter. So we bolted on the wets, and looks like everyone else did that too. And then really, I was just kind of finding my lines and just trying to find where the grip was. And I think we were the first to find it really well, because we started fourth and we were up in the lead in just a couple of laps. So yeah, definitely proud of how I was driving over there, and I enjoyed driving this. I enjoy driving this car a lot. I've been doing this a lot in the off season, because we haven't been doing any of the NASCAR stuff since like October. So I've been just doing a lot of road stuff, whether it's like sports car racing, open wheel racing. But I've been doing this a lot throughout the last couple of months, and I really having a really fun time with this car. Probably the best formula style open wheel car we have on the service right now. So I had a lot of fun. It was fun trying to drive in the rain. I love racing in the rain. I feel like it's one of my really good strengths, and definitely showed it in the ERL race just last week. So yeah, it was fun to come over here and have a good time. Good race there with Jarrett there. He kept me on my toes there until he spun out, but it was a really good race in there up front.
Yeah, Jarrett's kind of been the class of the field here in Indy NXT competition. A car I certainly can get behind, being one of the best open wheelers on the service. And kind of talk us through what maybe is a bit differing from this to maybe the IndyCar that you've kind of hopped in recently, some of the other sports car stuff you might have been doing here, kind of in your Pro Series off season, if you will, making the rounds. Just kind of what differs into how you prep for stuff like this as opposed to maybe some of the more stuff you're familiar with.
Yeah, obviously, like, the cars are just vastly different, and then the difference from this and the IndyCar is just not as much power, definitely a lot less downforce, and it's really more touch and go. I was having a hard time with the brakes a couple of times, going into the final chicane, coming to the start-finish line. I locked up there in the first lap, and I thought I was going off, but thankfully we kept it on there, and I almost did it again when Jarrett was right behind us, and that got us into our battle right there. So definitely, the brakes definitely feel different, and just kind of the way you have to drive it and stuff. You got to be easy with it, because it is really easy to spin out when you hit an invisible puddle there, which I did almost a few times, especially down through the S's, going down onto the backstretch. So, but no, definitely vastly different cars. But with me, I feel like I got the skill set to try to drive any sort of car that I hop into, and really just the fun I get out of it. It makes it worthwhile. But definitely, while I enjoy this, probably won't be running this as much often because tomorrow night we actually have our first qualifying race for the newly announced NASCAR qualifying series, which is what we got to do because we got knocked out of the Coke Series last year, didn't make the top 20 in points. So we got to get back to that last year. But I mean, I still love doing this in my free time whenever I get a chance. Just so much fun to do.
Yeah, we certainly wish you luck in your big qualifying race there tomorrow. You know the drill, though. Friends, family, sponsors, anyone you want to shout out, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just got to promote my PGR Esports. They're hopping on board with me for the qualifying series starting tomorrow night. So go check them out. If you're up for some big time fun super speedway racing on a Thursday night, go check them out at the PGResports.com. You can check out their Discord as well. Lots of money up for grabs during those races. They just had their big PGR Daytona 500 last night, which we were the defending champ of. We weren't able to go back to back, but we ran that, and they're doing a lot of good stuff, and they got a lot of momentum over there. So check out PGR Esports, and also just shout out you guys broadcasting this. Looked like it was a good time to broadcast, and hopefully I know you all enjoy this every Monday night. So shout out to you guys broadcasting, and shout out to everyone who raced, and shout out to everyone for watching, and check me out in the qualifying series. Check it out tomorrow night on all of iRacing's social channels.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for coming out and enjoying Indy next year with us. We'll hope to catch you sometime in the future at another go here in Indy Next or any other open wheel competition on all the various coverage here we have in this community. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, I appreciate you, Jacob. Thank you.
And that'll do it for Daniel Fulkingham. Surprise winner here in Indy Next competition. Cool to see. I know him from the Moon Car League, if you're familiar with that one. I think he made the good rounds in Moon Car for a while when that was still going around. So it's cool to see him making the rounds here in Indy Next competition for maybe a bit more proper. Well, I won't say Moon Car isn't properly competitive. I'll say it's a bit more focused competition here in the offseason for him. Sophie, what do you got here as we kind of have done it all here from Road Atlanta?
All I can say, Jacob, is this was an incredible race with amazing battles on a track that is difficult enough in the dry. Probably one of the most challenging tracks, like I said, in North America. And then when you add in all the wet, the changing conditions, the anxiety over your tire choices, we had plenty of drama, plenty of action, and an amazing new winner here in the Indy Next Road Series.
Yeah, come to think of it, I think all but one of our winners finished in the top 5 so far this season. You got Andre Castro, Jarrett Corey. The only one not even in the top 10 would be Logan Edwards facing their difficulties. But we had the class of the field at the front. We had, class of the field competition spread all throughout this entire field. And, many drivers struggled in the conditions here. We saw drivers making moves on the racing line in those wet conditions, going deep, a little too deep. We saw Corey even make that mistake late in the going. So it was very much kind of the evolving track as it continued to get worse and worse, wetter and wetter out there on the course. And that ultimately brought us one of arguably the best races we've seen in Indy Next competition here so far on P1 Broadcasting. But we'll be looking forward to some Oval Series action tomorrow night from North Wilkesboro, and we'll be back next week with the Road Series from Fuji. Just a couple rounds left to go. We'll start looking as to how those championship pictures are starting to shape up as the season comes to a close. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the broadcast here of Indy Next Road Series competition from Road Atlanta. And to all those that do the difficult jobs all around the world, we thank you very, very much for all the things you do, allowing us to do all the fun things we do, like bring you Indy Next coverage here on P1 Broadcasting. Have a good night, everybody. We will catch you next time for another great race. Have a good night, everybody.